So the race for third in the Atlantic Division is officially on as the Tampa Bay Lightning, with their win over Boston, moved to within 2 points of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So now, Jamie, of course, and we should mention that Tampa and Toronto still have two head-to-head meetings. So this is going to be a fun race down the stretch with only about 10 games left. But now we're going to get everybody saying things like this, Jamie. Do you want a wild card spot at this point if you're Toronto so you can maybe avoid Boston or Florida in the first round?
That might be the thought process, but careful what you wish for, because it's not like there's a slouch on the other side, whether it's the New York Rangers or the Carolina Hurricanes. But I will say this, you have history with the other two teams that you're potentially facing, the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers, and we know that from last season. So maybe you're just looking for something a little bit different, whether it is the New York Rangers, the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, all four of those teams are top-tier teams. So the Toronto Maple Leafs on paper might be the underdogs if you're betting on it, but they might feel comfortable going into this other team's building and trying to steal games. So I think bigger picture, if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs fan base, and even myself personally, you might want something a little bit different instead of just the same old, hey, we're facing Boston, or the same old, hey, we're facing the Florida Panthers. So they might be looking forward to the crossover. That might be a silver lining if the Tampa Bay Lightning end up catching you in the standings.
Now, the Leafs, of course, lost to New Jersey on Tuesday, and it was really interesting to me, Jamie, to hear Sheldon Keefe after the game, because he pretty much called out everybody. And he called out a player that he almost never calls out, and that's the team's captain, John Tavares. And John Tavares had a response to that at practice on Wednesday.
I think especially as the captain, you really want to be at the top of the list of being accountable and setting the standard and the way we need to play. And obviously, he's good in discussions with me and throughout our lineup about when there's plays to be made, make the plays. Certainly, depending on the situation in the game we're in.
He's been great, and he will be great. And I brought John up yesterday, as I did in the room with the team, because I think he's our leader and he's got to set the tone for our group. I had spoken to the team last night after the game ended, which I normally don't do after a loss, but felt it was needed, so they had a pretty good sense of where I was at then. But we chatted. We had a meeting today, just about reframing things and recognizing the things that I didn't like and the things that I feel they shouldn't like about last night, and press on.
Head coach calling out his stars, that's nothing new, right, Jamie? But you can only do it so much, right? That ammunition is only in the chamber so many times. What do you think of Keefe calling out Tavares after Tuesday's loss?
I had no problem with it, because if you go back a couple days, Jim Montgomery was calling out his team for the Boston Bruins, saying we're not ready for the playoffs. The pressure is immense in all these markets. The expectations are very high, and they know this is the window to try and do something to go deep into the playoffs. So Sheldon Keefe is trying to hold his guys accountable while still pressing some buttons, saying, hey, we've got to turn it into playoff mode right now. We just have been talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning, trying to catch them in the standings. You have to be dialed in, ultra dialed in. And after their first period, where they put up a ton of shots and they seemed in control of the game, they had a soft second and a soft third where they gave up way too many chances. So this is not a shot across the bow just on one particular game. He's basically saying, hey, we need to sharpen up for the last 10, 11, 12 games, whatever's needed, and into the playoffs that everyone's firing on all cylinders. So this is calculated, and you're right. You can't do this once a week, but Sheldon Keefe hasn't done this once a week. So that's why he's stepping outside of his comfort zone and targeting some of his top players. And instead of just going at one guy, he went at the top three, basically, and said, I need more from you, because Mitch Marner's on the sidelines right now.
And it doesn't get any easier. Toronto, Thursday night, facing a very hot Washington Capitals team that's in their own playoff chase. Later in the show, Jamie will join us one final time for a top 10 that happens to feature Jamie McLennan.